Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Mike Tomlin press conference. It's week 2 of the NFL season. The Steelers off an impressive win at Buffalo, 23-16. They beat a team that was 13-3 last year and only had one home loss to Kansas City. They went in there, defense led the way, kept them in the game, and then the offense took over in the second half and throwing a special teams touchdown to boot. And all of it had very important parts of a 23-16 win. Last night, the Ravens lost to the Raiders, and the Raiders now will come to Heinz Field on Sunday. That'll be the opener for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin is ready to talk about that as the Steelers get ready to host Las Vegas. As hard as that's for me to say, it's normally Oakland, it's Las Vegas Raiders. And here we go, over to head coach Mike Tomlin.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of Sunday. Before I get into that, I'll talk about injuries. Thankfully, doesn't appear that we have a lot of injury damage coming out of the game. There's some bumps and bruises associated with play, maybe a veteran guy or two that I'll minimize at the early portions of the week. But, we never spend a lot of time worrying about that. One man's misfortune or the taking care of a veteran player is a growth opportunity for a young guy. So, if we get into some of that, if I minimize Ben some tomorrow, it's a great day for Mason Rudolph. It's a great day for Dwayne Haskins to get elevated and get snaps and grow as professionals so that they can prepare themselves to deliver when called upon. I just think that's the essence of team. And I thought it'd be appropriate to make that point when I talk about practice participation as we get into the rhythm of this thing. Robert Spillane will continue to be evaluated. He may be limited somewhat at the early portions of the week, but we expect him to be available to us, barring any setbacks from a shin standpoint. And so that's a good thing. We're gonna need all hands on deck, obviously, to face this week's challenges. In review of the game, much like we talked about after the game, we weren't highly interested in style points. We knew it would be tough sledding. We knew it would be tough sledding for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, the Buffalo Bills are a quality outfit. They got quality players. They're well coached. They've got continuity now. That core group has been together for a number of years, and so we knew that would be challenging. We also knew the environment itself, playing in front of a packed stadium and the energy associated with week 1 would create some challenges. And lastly, we knew that we had a lot of new pieces. New to us, but in some instances new to the National Football League. I think we, played 4 players on offense that were in their first NFL at regular season action, one significant guy on defense, and obviously Presley as a punter. So, we were coiled for action in terms of, dealing with some adjusting in the early phases of the game, settling in, if you will. And I like the overall spirit and the can-do approach of the collective group as we dealt with that. We were able to settle down and make some plays and make enough plays to get victory, and for that we're thankful. But we have a lot to work on. We have a lot of details to improve. We need to continue to gain experience and cohesion individually and collectively. And so, as we get back to work with this week's challenges, and it's going to be a significant one, playing the Vegas Raiders coming off a big win. But more importantly than that, it's just the growth process that needs to occur at this stage of the journey. We walk into this parking lot each and every day, and we're either going to get better or we're not. And we better get better. We better get better as professionals. We better find our rhythm in terms of how we work. We better gain skills relative to the positions that we hold. We better gain insight about the game, awarenesses that will allow plays to happen for us. There's a lot of teaching and learning that just needs to continue to happen. But, that's not exclusive to us as the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sure everybody has that sentiment rolling into week 2. Now, talking about the Vegas Raiders, man, big win for them last night. We expect that they're going to challenge us in a big way. Starting first with their defense. They got a new defensive staff, but they have cohesion within that defensive staff. I know Gus Bradley, their defensive coordinator, very well. Ron Milas, their secondary coach. Richard Smith, their linebacker coach. All are new to Vegas, but they all have collective experience together. All 3 men were with the LA Chargers for the last number of years. And so, their ability to work together, the understanding of what they're trying to get done, and their ability to thus teach it to the group, I'm sure, is accelerated. I thought that was on display last night. I thought they made some big plays and critical moments. Can't say enough about their defensive line coach, Rod Marinelli. I worked with Rod, 20 years ago now in Tampa. He was the D-line coach when I was a secondary coach. Quality football coach. I was not surprised at all to watch Crosby and Nassib and Yannick and others, Hankins and those guys, be the catalyst for splash for them. That could probably describe every defensive line unit that Rod has coached in the last 25 years in the NFL. I know I benefited from it as a secondary coach when we worked together in Tampa. So those sack fumbles and those game-changing plays, there's nothing mystical about it. That's the culture that they're building over there. That's the standard that they're held to. And so you can't be surprised when those plays come to fruition. They're a very technically sound group, schematically. They're not going to be out of place. They're going to minimize explosion plays. They're going to run to the ball. They're going to hit and tackle. All of that I thought was on display last night. Really challenging at this stage of the year in terms of preparing for them, not only because of the lack of collective tape that they have to study, but they've kind of put that group together. They went out and got Yannick in free agency and some others. Q Jeff, a Pittsburgh native, is playing inside for him at the D-tackle spot. Perryman. They got a couple of guys in their defensive unit that come from the Chargers. And so you couple the continuity within the coaching staff, coupled with some significant guys like Hayward at corner, who've come over from the Chargers, man, that's why I think you're seeing better cohesion maybe than you would anticipate seeing from a first-time out unit. And so we spent some time talking about that this morning, and we will continue as a staff just respecting that element of it. They got quality players at every level. They got more cohesion than you would anticipate. And so we got to do a good job of minimizing negativity. That front is dangerous. They play a lot of people. They keep them fresh. And I'd imagine as you look at this group over the course of the year, that group is going to provide a lot of splash for them. It's our job to minimize it this week. On the offensive side of the ball, man, it's just about the dynamic strategy of John Gruden. I'm very familiar with that, having had an opportunity to work for him, and his relationship with Carr at quarterback, and their ability to put their collective ability to put that plan together and distribute the ball to eligibles and keep defenses off balance in a variety of ways. Utilization of personnel, changes of pace, pre-snap shifts and motions, you name it. He's into it. He's been into it. I learned a lot from him in that regard. Watching them last night, they're really rocking and rolling in that regard. Not that I'm surprised by it. They've gained in big-time continuity in that phase of the game as well. Carr is throwing to Renfro repeatedly now, and they're gaining cohesion in terms of experience. Ruggs is not a rookie anymore. Can't say enough about the relationship that he has with Waller. You can describe him as a tight end, but I think that seems less than appropriate, to be honest with you, man. That's putting him in a box. This guy is a dynamic, big athlete. I'm watching the game last night and looking at his measurables, man. He's more similar to Claypool than he is any tight end that we have on our roster in terms of measurables and fluidity of movement and body control. And so, we better respect him in that vein. I think people that are unfamiliar with those guys and try to treat him like a tight end and maybe cover him the way you would cover normal tight ends, you're really setting yourself up for a long evening, not only in terms of his talents, but just his role. He had 19 targets, I think, last night. And so, you can't talk about stopping somebody that they're committing to getting the ball to like that. We just have to work to minimize his impact on the game. We had a similar mentality about Diggs a week ago. And so, we better respect him and his capabilities, their utilization of him, and how he fits within what it is that they do. All of that being said, if you give that stuff too much attention, Jacobs is going to absolutely gore you in the running game. I think that's one of the cool things about Coach Gruden. He has a reputation in terms of dynamic strategy in the passing game, but underneath it all, he's a tremendous fundamentalist. He would love to pump you off the ball and gore you in the line of scrimmage with his bigs if he can, and so you better respect that element of it. Got a lot of respect for that young right tackle that they have, Leatherwood, up front. Got very familiar with him through the draft process, just the amount of time that we spent down in Tuscaloosa. He's a quality player. But they got a lot of quality players, man. We got our work cut out for us, but all of us do. In the National Football League, man, that's the challenges of competing in this game at this level. Hopefully our guys have a thirst for that because it's going to be needed. We got some work before we get into all of that in terms of preparation and our continued growth and development, and we're excited about getting them in here tomorrow and continuing that maturation process. I've talked enough. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Hey, Mike, you used a lot of different guys at nickel. Was that just kind of coincidence? I mean, for opening day rotation, or did you do it by design, maybe to help confuse Josh Allen? And what is it about Trey Norwood that you have such faith in him?
We did it by design. We just got that level of respect for Josh Allen and the continuity that they have. And so, not only to mix our calls, but to mix the utilization of people, I thought would assist us. And when you have guys that are position flexible, that have a nice skill set in that regard, like Cam Sutton and Minka and now Trey Norwood, it allows you to have some interchangeable parts and do some different things and add some complexities that hopefully keep the dogs off you.
Mike, Najee played every offensive snap in the game. Was that the plan going in, and what did you see out of his first performance in a real game?
We were monitoring his conditioning and how the game went for him. It was the first time, but he's a highly conditioned guy. We weren't moving the ball fluidly enough in the first half where it became an issue, and so that's really where it captured your attention early in the game. You burn a lot of fuel as a young guy early in the game, anxiety and so forth. And so it became less of an issue as the game wore on. He settled down. We found our rhythm. And so I was happy with how that transpired and unfolded. And the same could be said for the quality of his play as the game unfolded.
Mike, you just talked a lot about the Raiders' defense and their improvements this year. How much can you rely on the tape from last season compared to the 1 week sample size you have from this year?
Schematically, I'm probably looking at the LA Chargers as much as I am what happened in Vegas last year. Again, like I mentioned at the top of it, man, they've got really good continuity with Gus Bradley, and not only Gus Bradley, but the secondary coach and the linebacker coach. All three men were in L.A., a part of the Charger organization. So just in terms of my summer study and preparation for it, but even now, as you sit here, we've been in stadiums versus that collection of men from a planning standpoint. And so that tape is just as or more important to us than 2020 Vegas tape.
Last year, you blitzed almost 40% of the time. Sunday against Josh Allen, you blitzed on only 2 of 54 dropbacks. What can a defense do if it can bring pressure the way you did without having to resort to a blitz?
We did what we had to do to win that game. What we did is by no way indicative of what we intend our intentions to be this week or our personality to be moving forward. We did what we had to do to win that game.
Also on the pass rush a little bit, the rotation that you got with your 3 outside linebackers, were you happy with how the snap counts were distributed there during the course of the game? And is that something you're going for moving forward? Is that more of kind of dictated by where Alex was and where TJ was coming into week 1?
Yeah, we're not going to be a slave to snap distribution. I'm not going to be coming in here every week explaining to you guys why the 3 guys got the snaps that they got. It's our job to keep all 3 men fresh and engaged and in position to make plays for us. That's what we intended to do. That's how it unfolded, and that'll be our mentality moving forward. So I won't come in here week in and week out and explain the distribution of snaps as it pertains to those 3 men. They're all varsity. They're all going to be significant. We're excited we got all three of them, and we intend to utilize all three of them. And maybe from time to time, all three at once, if the situation allots for it.
Yeah, Mike, you talked about the environment you faced in Buffalo. It's been 2 years since you've had a full house here. Are you expecting that level of environment and excitement from the fans Sunday?
Hey, I'm excited about it, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to our team about it. I'm going to talk to our team about the responsibility of creating that environment. It's our job to make the plays, to keep the crowd engaged, to entertain them, and to make it as hostile as we can make it. We talked openly about that a week ago. We knew that if we made plays, that we had an opportunity to kind of quell the environment that we were in. We didn't make enough plays early on, you know. You give them that big kickoff and you spot them 3 points and you're not gaining fluidity, man. We didn't make the job easy for ourselves. And so we proceed with that understanding. We're excited about getting back in the comforts of Heinz Field and entertaining Steeler Nation, but we also are not running away from, we're running to the responsibilities that comes with playing in Heinz Field.
Mike, you mentioned last week just how you would learn more about your team, who your team was after this game. Obviously, it is a small sample size, but what did you learn moving into week 2 here?
You know, a lot of little lessons, none probably significant enough or cemented enough that I would acknowledge it in this setting. But, you know, I know the men as individuals better. I think when you face adversity and duress, you learn a little bit about yourselves and those you work with. But I also think you learn a little bit about the collective. I'm always interested in the collective mentality when faced with adversity. You know, how does the defense take the field when we give up a 75-yard kickoff, for example? The spirit in which they do it. And so that's what I mean when I'm saying learning about ourselves. You know, the game itself, the challenges of competition provides windows and gives you an opportunity to reveal certain things about yourself individually and collectively. And I'd imagine that's going to continue in a big way as we continue to step into stadiums, particularly at the early portions of this.
Mike, I know there were jokes about Cam Hayward's age. What allows him to play at this level in his 11th year?
I have no idea. I'm going to continue to joke about Cam's age. You know, we're all motivated in different ways, man. Cam is one of those guys that's, you know, always looking for reasons to rise up in the face of something, and you throw his age in his face, and even though he knows what you're doing, he has to respond. That's the competitor that man is, and so please keep talking about it. We fully expect him to continue to do what it is that he's doing and has done for us, which is not only make quality plays, but be a quality leader.
You face tremendous pass rushers every single week, but Max Crosby yesterday really did have a monster game. What specifically about him makes him such a challenge? What does he do particularly well?
It's his motor and his skill. But, you know, I could say the same thing about Nassib. I could say the same thing about Yannick. You know, I know how those guys are being coached. I worked with Rod Marinelli for 5 years in a real intimate way. I often refer to him as my football father, you know, because I was a 28-year-old man when we started working together, and he helped shape a lot of philosophical approaches that I have regarding development. Crosby has talent. I tip my cap to that talent, but you know, we better be prepared to block that entire group. His skills were highlighted last night, and it might just be circumstantial. It might be matchups. It might be how the game unfolded. We better be prepared for all of those men to be capable of being that dynamic and impactful on the football game.
Mike, a lot of your rush guys, outside, inside, have really credited Dunbar for helping them with pass rushing moves. How influential has he been with some of those pass rushing guys?
He's been very instrumental, but we as coaches, you know, they're the product, we're the source. It's our jobs. We don't expect credit or pats on the back in terms of helping these guys grow and develop. We look for guys that have talent and will and that love football. And if they bring those attributes to the table, man, we help them round out their game. And so, you know, I'm appreciative of them recognizing that contribution that Coach Dunbar brings, but that's the job for all of us. That's the job for all positional coaches, all coordinators, and myself is at the front of that line. If we're not helping players develop day to day, what are we doing?
Mike, how did you assess your offensive line's play in their first time going up against Bills and the different things they threw at them and now getting ready for a challenge like the Raiders?
I love the spirit in which they worked. I love the demeanor in which they worked. I love the physicality in which they worked. The quality of our work has to get better. We have to develop skill relative to that position. We got to develop individual and collective know-how and cohesion. But the will things, the intangible things that are very required in order to progress, I saw. And so that was encouraging. Not that I'm looking for it, but that was encouraging. But we roll our sleeves up and go back to work this week.
Mike, you mentioned you're anxious to see how your team responds, giving up the kickoff. The defense holds them to 3. I'm wondering about the offense didn't do a whole lot in the first half. Aside from relying on Ben to make plays using his physical skills, how much do you rely on him to deal with the rest of the players on offense, a lot of rookies, a lot of first-year Steelers, to say, hey, we're okay, don't panic, stay with the plan? How much do you rely on him for that kind of leadership?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that or even talking to Ben about that. That's just something that comes with Ben. That's something that I know he does. And so that doesn't dominate my time, to be quite honest with you. I'm concerned about the maturation process of the men that you mentioned. And I was really pleased with the maturation, the process displayed by our receivers. They didn't get an opportunity to impact the game in a real positive way at the early stages. But they didn't get frustrated, and they stayed in the fight, and they made the plays when called upon. I mean, Claypool made ridiculous plays for us in the second half of the game. Deontay made ridiculous plays. Juju made some significant plays, and none of those plays occurred at the early portions. And we got a really young receiver group, and so it was cool to see them grow from a maturity standpoint and understand that element of it. That it is a collective, and maybe they don't always get an opportunity to do that, what maybe they are capable of doing all day. It's just a collective. It's part of team. It's what makes football the ultimate team game. I was really pleased with the maturation displayed by that group and their readiness when called upon in terms of the plays that they delivered.
Mike, how did John Gruden influence you as a young NFL coach when you were at Tampa Bay, and are there still things maybe you learned from him that you still find yourself leaning on?
Gruden has no fear. He doesn't. He looks at an issue or a problem and he sees it as an opportunity. I worked for him for 4 years, man. You can't fake that. It's every day from him. I've probably always generally had that mentality, but he helped me hone it and as a vocation, as a coach. His can-do approach, the positive energy that he consistently brings to whatever challenge that the job presents, helped me grow in a big way as a coach when I worked for him as a young guy, for sure.
Yeah, Mike, how would you assess Kendrick Green's play? And there was a sequence where he came out for about 3 plays. What can you say what happened there?
There's nothing there from a health standpoint to be concerned about. We like where he is. Much like I mentioned with the rest of the offensive group and unit, I thought he brought the intangible things. He played with energy. He played with physicality. He played hard. He finished. Some of the technical things, awareness things, skill-related things, smoothed out over the course of the game, and it's reasonable to expect that to continue. There's going to be challenges. But, boy, what an environment he was in, man. We're working on silent count, and he's a center and all of those things. Just to get in that environment with him and, Dan Moore, and not have a bunch of pre-snap penalties and things of that nature, I just thought was a win. I was prepared to deal with, 1st and 15 or losing for 5 yards on a 3rd and 3 going to a 3rd and 8 because they got their ears pinned back and we're working on a silent count. I can't say enough about the work that those young guys did. By no means have they arrived. We got so much work ahead of us, but it was enough to get us out of that stadium with the win, and I'm appreciative.
Mike, in terms of Waller, it seems like you have a lot of options to cover him, if it's Schobert, Bush, Sutton, whoever it is. How critical is that aspect of it to be able to be successful against him?
You're absolutely right, and I'm not going to disclose any of them. Options are good, and not only in terms of changing people up, but number of people. I mean, you know, you better be prepared to deal with 19 targets.
Mike, you mentioned the maturation of the wide receiver group. Is that organic, or was there a emphasis from the coaching staff or maybe one of the guys out of that group to kind of say, hey, look, we've got to get beyond just worrying about ours?
You know, nothing just happens. Everything is thoughtful. When you're talking about the maturation process of individuals or collective, none of it is haphazard. I spent a lot of time talking to Chase Claypool about taking the step from year 1 to year 2 specifically, for example. And mentality is a component of it. Poise is a component of it. Understanding the ebb and flow that is professional football and the opportunities or lack thereof at times is a very real thing. And so kudos to those guys, but nothing happens haphazardly.
No, go ahead.
Just following up on your point about what Moore and Green did with the silent count and all that, you on your radio show said that there's a big difference between crowd noise for 100,000 people in college and maybe 75,000 people in a pro stadium. They'll root against you in the pro stadium. They're rooting for you in college, right? Roughly. How was that a case of message heard, message understood from those guys? How did those guys? Was it more than just Freiermuth you talked to about that?
It was as many guys as I could. I just wanted them to understand it. A guy like Pat that's played in front of 100,000 every weekend, he thinks he's prepared for that, and he's not. And that's a illustration that I use to relay to them the differences between the two games. And I'm just being honest. You know, you go to college environments, man, the home team roots for their team. You go to a professional environment, they root against the visitor. And so there's an intensity there that's different than college football. And so 65 and 70 can be unlike any college environment, and I didn't want them to be surprised by that.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
That's Mike Tomlin after his press conference. Nice advice to the young guys. Missy Matthews, Steelers.com. You know, that is a big difference, and those guys may not, especially after a lot of them, even second-year players here, never went through that last year.
Yeah, and it was very loud in Buffalo at Highmark Stadium. Of course, Coach Tomlin asked about the home opener at Heinz Field on Sunday and said the Steelers are responsible for creating that environment, making big plays to keep the fans engaged. And I am very excited to go back to Heinz Field.
I think it's going to be a wonderful day. Sunday, the Raiders come to town after beating Baltimore last night. We have a lot to get into as we broadcast here live on Pittsburgh CW in the Pittsburgh market and streaming live on Steelers digital and social platforms. We'll take a break. Missy and I will break down what Mike Tomlin had to say to look ahead to the next game against the Raiders and some of the good stuff that happened in Buffalo. All next when we continue right here at Steeler headquarters.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. Some RPOs in there for you in that final drive. Number 2 is, it seemed like that's where you had your most confidence in that last 5 minutes. Do you feel the same?
There were a lot of RPOs in there, almost all of them, and we anticipated them to sell out to stop the run, and so we had some different looks. I thought Juju made a great catch, Chase made a great catch, Deontay got a huge. I mean, you hate that play to Deontay down the sideline where it's potential touchdown, but it's only a hold and it's 5 yards. But proud of the way that we finished the game, but not satisfied because we should have stayed on the field, right? We should stay on the field and use all the clock. So told the guys good job, but not good enough at the end of the game. And so We did use up enough clock. We got some first downs. We did what we needed to do, but we'd like to finish it on the field.
And I know it's only one game, but that sounded like a pretty raucous locker room. How significant was what you did there?
Well, like I said, guys understand what just happened. I mean, we played a really good football team. They returned a lot of players. It was really good last year, and it wasn't looking pretty early. But we persevered. We fought through it, and we found a way to win. So, yeah, guys are excited.
Ben, we talked a lot about new offense, new play calls, new verbiage, new voice in your ear. How were the mechanics of everything today?
I thought it went well. It's definitely different not coming to the sideline and having the coordinator there to speak to and have to talk through Coach Sully. But, overall, I thought it went really well.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Welcome back as we continue to broadcast live here. Mike Tomlin press conference. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews on Pittsburgh CW and streaming, of course, on all the Steelers digital and social platforms. Now it's time, Missy, to take a look at the guy who a lot of people wondered how effective could he be in week one after not practicing all in training camp. But TJ Watt by the numbers, brought to you by BetMGM. And there you go. I don't know that you can have expected any more than that, Missy.
No, absolutely. And, he said he felt fresh, had a really good week of practice, and they did the rotation at the outside linebackers, which obviously worked very well to slow down Josh Allen in that high-powered offense. Many people predicting they would have scored 30 on the Steelers, and we know that was not the case.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that when you have three guys, you bring in Melvin Ingram at $4 million a year, pretty good bargain for a guy who's a Pro Bowl player, and shows that. And I thought right off the bat he made a big play after the 75-yard kickoff return. He and Cam stopped that in its tracks, so they had to settle for 3. I think that's a talked about play, but a big one in that game.
If they scored 7 there, I think that sets a very different tone for the Steelers, holding them to 3. But Melvin Ingram, just the pressure that he brought to Josh Allen, I'm sure Josh Allen was kind of looking to see which way he was coming, because he had a field day on Sunday.
When you think about pressures, Cam Hayward led the NFL with 12 quarterback pressures. TJ Watt had 8, Ingram had 8, and now the question is, how do you go about with the snap distribution? Mike Tomlin had an interesting comment about keeping guys fresh earlier today.
Yeah, we're not going to be a slave to distribution. I'm not going to be coming in here every week explaining to you guys why the 3 guys got the snaps that they got. It's our job to keep all 3 men fresh and engaged and in position to make plays for us. That's what we intended to do. That's how it unfolded. And that'll be our mentality moving forward. So I won't come in here week in and week out and explain the distribution of snaps as it pertains to those 3 men. They're all varsity. They're all going to be significant. We're excited we got all 3 of them, and we intend to utilize all 3 of them. And maybe from time to time, all 3 at once, if the situation allots for it.
That's an interesting little nugget there. All 3 at once. Can you imagine?
If you're an opposing quarterback, you are not excited to hear that from Coach Tomlin.
I think fresh and engaged is important when you're dealing with a long season. Now it's 17 games, not 16 games. I thought the most impressive part of their performance was the fact that they did not rely on the blitz to get to the quarterback. Normally that's the way they go about it, the quote Blitzburg approach, but those guys up front, and this is without Stephon Tuitt, Missy, were very effective getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, the loss of Stephon Tuitt, him and TJ Watt were the only duo in the league in 2020 that had double-digit sacks, but Tyson Alualu, who we have seen step up in his absence before, did a phenomenal job as well, and they rotated those interior guys as well. We saw some Carlos Davis, Isaiah Buggs, so keeping everybody fresh on that front.
And they're very deep there. Loudermilk's another guy who looks so good in the preseason. He's going to have a hard time getting in there, but that's a good problem to have. They're doing it without blitzing as much, although I think it's a week-to-week proposition. And you wonder about this week because he talked a lot about Darren Waller. 19 targets. Interesting that he utilized the comparison with Chase Claypool, who's a wide receiver. Technically, Waller's a tight end, but not so much.
Absolutely, and the defense is going to be tasked with trying to shut him down. Obviously, Derek Carr feels very comfortable going to him, but then, as Coach said, their run game with Josh Jacobs, that's another piece of the puzzle. So a tall task for the defense in week 2.
We have more coming up as we break down Mike Tomlin's press conference, getting set for the Raiders at home. It'll be a big Sunday, fans, for the first time, and they're going to be excited to see the Steelers, who are 1-0 now on top of the division with the Bengals, as the Ravens and the Browns are 0-1. I know it's only 1 week, but that sounds good, doesn't it?
We can celebrate a little bit.
We'll be back with more of our breakdown of the Mike Tomlin press conference right here on Pittsburgh CW.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Success rate is probably not going to be really high because that's just the nature of how of that play.
Sure. Well, listen. I'm originally from Las Vegas, and I see guys in the casino all the time, and the odds of you winning a number on let's just say roulette are very low, right? But you don't put that money down thinking you're going to lose. So I would say that that's probably a fair comparison to this. The only way you're going to get a big play on special teams is if you think you're going to get it. And you have to think that way every single time, no matter what the odds are. Otherwise, you're not going to get it, if that makes sense.
Last one, Jeff Hawthorne, 93.7.
Well, sticking with that theme, I don't think a lot of people went into those casinos and laid money on the Steelers to win that game. What's the significance of the win yesterday?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're 1-0, and we're looking to be 2-0. That's all I know. I don't get into the odds. You think maybe I would, but I didn't get into the odds that much. I'm new to the AFC, but I know it was a big game because it was the game that we're playing that week. Not to sound too cliche, but each week is just as big as the last week for me. So I'm just looking for let's get this next one.
The terrible towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
Played 4 players on offense that were in their first NFL at regular season action, 1 significant guy on defense, and obviously Presley as a punter. So, we were coiled for action in terms of, dealing with some adjusting in the early phases of the game, settling in, if you will, and I like the overall spirit and the can-do approach of the collective group as we dealt with that.
Welcome back. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews, Mike Tomlin talking about young players. 6 rookies. You very seldom see that. And I think one of the keys for this win this past week was the fact the defense rose up, kept it at bay when it could have got out of hand. And those rookies got better as the game went on once they got acclimated a little bit to the pressure of playing on the road in front of a lot of fans.
Yeah, especially those offensive line guys, as you mentioned, Kendrick Green at center and Dan Moore Jr., just what they were able to do in terms of being physical and calming down. And I think Ben even said after the game at halftime, no one was panicking, but they knew that they needed to score some points, and they were able to do that and get them back in the game, because for a while it was looking like the defense was wearing down and there was no end in sight. But luckily the offense was able to get it together in the second half.
Yeah, right off the bat, too, they came out, put together a nice drive. Najee Harris had one of his long runs in it, resulted in 3, but it gave them a little bit of confidence. And then, all of these wide receivers are talented and want the ball. There's no question. But I think Tomlin made a good point there, Missy, when he said, too, that they understand their role. They understood to be patient just because of the way this game was going, but they were going to get their chances. And then eventually Roethlisberger got that ball around and started distributing it.
Well, and, going back to Deontay Johnson, of course, he had the go-ahead touchdown. It was in Week 14 in Buffalo last year where he was benched by Coach Tomlin with all of the different drops. So for him to be able to have a great offseason, great training camp and preseason, come in Week 1 and really help the Steelers offense, and as we heard from Ben a little bit a while ago too, just Juju and Chase being there and being reliable to help settle things down and help them even consistently try to go back to the run game and involving Najee Harris, who played every snap on offense.
Amazing, the touchdown catch you just saw there from Deontay Johnson, who led the NFL in drops. He's made a concerted effort to try to change that. That was a tough play to get your feet in after bobbling the ball. It reminded me of a combination of Santonio Holmes and Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Those plays, toe tapping is not easy when the ball's juggling like that.
No doubt, and in that environment, because at that point, Bills Mafia was not letting the Steelers, have any chance to be able to hear each other. So that was definitely a big play for the Steelers on Sunday.
Kendrick Green started the game, like a lot of young people who get their first opportunity, had some rough patches there, and so Mike Tomlin had J.C. Hassenauer in it. He went back to Kendrick Green. He talked about the starting center of the Steelers earlier today.
There's nothing there from a standpoint to be concerned about. We like where he is. Much like I mentioned with the rest of the offensive group and unit, I thought he brought the intangible things. He played with energy. He played with physicality. He played hard. He finished. Some of the technical things, awareness things, skill-related things, smoothed out over the course of the game, and it's reasonable to expect that to continue. There's going to be challenges. But, boy, what an environment he was in, man. We're working on silent count, and he's a center and all of those things. Just to get in that environment with him and, Dan Moore, and not have a bunch of pre-snap penalties and things of that nature, I just thought was a win.
And I thought right there, that was the key. They didn't do a lot of pre-snap penalties, and that's easy to do in that environment. They're young guys. You think they'd be
even
anxious?
Just the jitters, right?
And they didn't do it.
Absolutely.
So the more of that you have, the better it's going to be. You don't want to have self-inflicted penalties or turnovers, and in that Buffalo game, the Steelers did a good job staying away from both. We're going to take a break, come back with more as the Steelers get set to take on the Raiders on Sunday. 1-0 start. They'll try to make it 2-0 with a first home game in Heinz Field. We'll be right back.
We feel like we have quality rushers inside and out. And when we get those opportunities, we feel like we got to succeed. Our back end does an amazing job, kept the lid on everything. And when we have that going from the back end to the front end, it's pretty nice to see.
Cam, how much momentum did you feel like the entire team was getting from some of those fourth down stops?
Fourth down, and then, those turnovers were huge for us. One turnover. But, we looked at those like turnovers, and we looked for us to capitalize on them. We practice all week. We know what we're looking at. It comes down to execution. Even when we gave up the touchdown in the first half, we were like, damn, we were right there. We felt good about it. And, we were able to adjust and keep going.
What about TJ today with everything he's been through and this week, and for him to come out without
He's fine. No, but, he's had a heck of a week, but, not everybody can do what he does. And, for him to go out there and handle the way he handled and, capitalize on it with a win like this, pretty proud of him. I know it wasn't always pretty for him, and, he wanted to be out there with us, but, it got done. Everybody's happy, and then you get to capitalize with a W on top of it.
What's it say about TJ that he's able to make such big plays despite having some limited practice and given what he's gone through? I mean, the sack fumble and then the big stop on third down.
I think he does a great job of capitalizing what offense gives him. I think, understanding when his number is called and he's going to get single coverage and, they're going to leave him on the island with one guy, he's going to make him pay. That's a tribute to him. That's a tribute to our back end. And then the other guys up front. I think it works all hand in hand to have a good defense to go along with TJ,
Terrible towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
There's two more before the end.
A lot of big performances, especially on defense, but nobody did better than Cam Hayward, who at age 32 continues to look like he is drinking from the fountain of youth. And Mike Tomlin was asked about what makes him tick at age 32.
I have no idea. I'm going to continue to joke about Cam's age. We're all motivated in different ways, man. Cam is one of those guys that's always looking for reasons to rise up in the face of something, and you throw his age in his face, and even though he knows what you're doing, he has to respond. That's the competitor that man is, and so please keep talking about it. We fully expect him to continue to do what it is that he's doing and has done for us, which is not only make quality plays, but be a quality leader.
We have to keep talking about him, and we will. And Mike Tomlin will have a smile on his face with performances like that. He was unblockable in that game.
Absolutely. Joe Hayden has joked that Cam is older than him, and sometimes, or he is older than Cam, and sometimes people think it's the reverse. But, also just Cam Hayward, he's voted a defensive captain every year for a reason, and I feel like he really set the tone for that defense, knowing that TJ Watt was coming back from not much practice. So Cam's just one of those guys I think everybody feeds off of, and when you make a mistake as well, he'll let you know about it.
Yeah, a leader in every sense of the word. We'll take a break, come back with more of our coverage of the Mike Tomlin press conference right here on Pittsburgh CW.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field is everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
I felt really fresh, and I think I kind of said that this week. I felt fresh all week, and never wanted to get too confident with how I felt because I didn't know coming into a game atmosphere and obviously all the hype and adrenaline that comes with it. But the three-man rotation that we have with Alex and Melvin is something that's going to be really special, and we're a very unselfish group, and that's why I'm looking forward to playing with both of them.
TJ, how would you characterize what you guys were able to do on defense today, especially limiting Josh Allen to what you guys did?
Yeah, I don't want to say a dominant performance because obviously there's still a lot left on the table, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of film to watch and make corrections, but I'm very happy with where we are, especially week one. Like I said, I love playing with this group. We fly around. We handle adversity really well.
How pivotal was that fourth down stop in midfield when campsite?
Huge. I think the play before it was I came up and under the tackle I shouldn't have, and Minka came down like a missile from the middle of the field and made it 4th and 1. So just plays like that were happening all day where I'm so excited to get back and watch the film because there's tremendous plays like that all over. And then Cam Sutton made a tremendous play on that 4th and 1 as well to give the ball back to our offense.
What about the significance of holding them to 3 after the opening kickoff?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, anytime we as a defense can help the offense as much as we possibly can, and then towards the end of the game you see the special teams get involved too, it was truly a 3-phase win today.
What was that like when you go off after getting the 6-yard sack, and then you turn around and see the block punt, you guys celebrating in the end zone?
That's huge, man. I like to say the adrenaline and all that started with 44 getting the tackle on the kickoff. He was all hyped up. He got me hyped up, and then obviously the sack, and then. Like I said, this game, especially when we're on the road, is all about momentum and playing with the momentum and going with the ebbs and flows of football. And
The terrible towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
We got to do a good job of minimizing negativity. That front is dangerous. Play a lot of people. They keep them fresh. And I'd imagine as you look at this group over the course of the year, that group is going to provide a lot of splash for them. It's our job to minimize it this week.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin talking about a big problem. At least it was for Baltimore last night. Alejandro Villanueva had his hands full with Max Crosby, who I think had 2 sacks himself, plus a lot of tackles for losses. That's going to be a key to this game, isn't it?
No doubt about it, especially with the young offensive line. The fact that it took the Steelers an entire half to find some fluidity, as Coach Tomlin called it. But he said this week they're stressing cohesion, not just among the individual units, but also offense and defense and special teams to try to get better for week 2 with a tough test for the Raiders coming to town.
And Chuks Okorafor is going to have that assignment, too. He's going to have to be the guy to try to stand up against that guy. And like I said, Villanueva was that was a tough assignment for him. And you wonder if he was at right tackle, maybe they should have moved him over to left tackle at some point in that game because he was being manhandled.
Absolutely. I think the good thing is we did see some nice blocking from rookie tight end Pat Freiermuth, in Buffalo. So I'm sure they will be tasked as well with helping some of those younger guys on the O-line.
All right, we will take a break here. Raiders coming into town. They're victorious last night on Monday Night Football as Lamar Jackson had a couple of fumbles late in that game in regulation, then in overtime. What a wild finish it was, 33-27, that final score. We'll be back to talk about that and give you an injury update here on the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steelers digital platforms.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. Hey, Ulysses, can you kind of run us through that play from your standpoint and kind of your feeling as you're seeing the ball land right there?
Oh man, it was just a play that we've just been running all week in practice, and then just a lot of effort and a lot of just great execution. And then when the ball was right there, I just seen that out of the corner of my eye, and thankfully it was right there. Just picked it up and ran to the end zone.
Bert Pryor.
Ulysses, you're being kind of chill for a guy that scored a special teams touchdown in such an exciting way. I mean, what was that moment like when you finally, you score and it kind of sinks in that you guys have just pulled off this pretty insane play in a crucial moment in a road venue?
Man, it's just a blessing. I just can't thank God enough just for the opportunity, man. But honestly, I don't know when it kicked in for me. I don't think it really set in for me until I got to the sideline and just sat down. But just to see all the guys are so excited and just see all my teammates just come around me and we just all excited about just making a play was just amazing to me. It was just something I remember forever. Not only just because the game was just so big, just because it's just playing with their brothers in and day out, and just all the things we went through with camp, and just to this point, it just felt amazing.
We'll go to Nick Fairbaugh. Nick.
Hey, Yuli, you also made a big special teams play on the opening kickoff. Mackenzie kind of broke that out, and you came from behind on a hustle play to make that play. Kind of looking back on it, what was going through your mind on that play as you were hustling down to get him, and how big do you think that play was in retrospect, to really hold him to 3 after that with your defense?
To me, it's just a hustle play. It's just something that I just feel like as a football player and as a competitor is what you do. Just never quit on a play. That's what I've been learning from a young age, and it's always stuck with me.
All right, welcome back. Before we go, injury update, Missy. It's actually pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, not much to mention. Coach Tomlin did say Robert Spillane, who was injured in pregame in Buffalo, will probably be limited, but should be good to go Sunday for the Raiders. He also said some veteran guys like Ben Roethlisberger may be limited in the early portions of the week, but that's good news for the young guys behind them to get some practice reps as well.
Key words this week: fresh and engaged. Right? It's a long season.
And cohesion.
And cohesion. That was another big word today. Yes. So the Raiders come to town. It's a good team. They have some players who can make a difference. We saw that last night. Although the Ravens have been hit hard by injury, they lost another lineman last night. They have to now go to Kansas City for week 2. They could be 0-2. It's never a good start, 0-2 based on the odds. But what about this team, Las Vegas, coming here? And their offense, which was better than I thought it would be.
I agree. I still think the Steelers' defense is going to be called heavily upon Sunday in the home opener to be that unit that steps up and keeps the Steelers in. I do think this will be a better game for the Steelers' offense, maybe not such a slow start, but you are going to have to rely on this defense. 8 first-rounders on it. They have the coach from 2020, and some of the new pieces the Steelers have added in have helped upgrade and alleviate some of the issues with losing Bud Dupree and Mike Hilton.
Yeah, Derek Carr put it out there at the end of the game as they went in overtime. Kind of a blown coverage by the Ravens. I thought Marlon Humphrey got tangled up and blocked by his own man, but he put Zay Jones right on the money, and that won it in overtime. So this is going to be a good test for the Steelers. They all will be when you're facing quarterbacks like a guy like Derek Carr. Again, I do that all the time.
You have all week to practice.
Jeez.
You'll be good.
I knew David back before there was Derek, so there you go. That's going to do it for our show. I want to remind you, we got the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show Saturday night, 11:35 KDK. You can see it on the Steelers YouTube, and then BetMGM Steelers kickoff, followed by the Neighborhood Ford Store Extra Point on Pittsburgh CW. For Missy, I'm Bob. Have a good day, everyone.